You are in class. You are anxious about what today brings. You're not worried over a test or your grades, but something else entirely. Your teacher has been acting strange these past few days, saying things you typically only hear in movies. She walks into the classroom and begins teaching, until she starts telling everyone around you, you all have demons inside you. Let me cleanse you of this evil. You look over beside you and see a boy with cuts along his arm. What happens next?
St. Pete police say she convinced a group of 7 former students of hers to cut their skin to let the evil spirits out.
All we can do is based on her activities with these kids, which obviously is outside the norm.
You might wonder, how could this story get any creepier?
In St. Petersburg, Florida, lives the city of Lealman, inside Pinellas County. Lealman was named after Elizabeth Lealman, who was a county sheriff. He moved him and his family into the area so they could grow strawberries and oranges. The train station in town was designated as the Lealman Station in 1895. The area the houses were located in slowly became known as Lealman Heights. Around 2010, Lealman had many K-12 schooling options, community centers, and 2 recreational green spaces, Lealman Neighborhood Park and Raymond H. Nary Community Park. The buildings, roadways, and sidewalks look to be run down. Lealman itself is one of the poorest areas in Pinellas County. Inside Lealman sits a family center, Lealman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center. Their goal is to provide and support the families and children in the Lealman and Asian communities in Pinellas County. They want to ensure that everyone has access to essential services and education, but also giving kids memories that will last forever. About 50% of the kids there are of Asian descent, and many of the kids and parents don't know English when they first move into the US, so the tutors help the kids and the parents learn English. The center has been helping the community for 25 years. Florida became preoccupied.
Story out front tonight. Drugs known as bath salts being blamed for a gruesome scene in Miami. This is a naked man. He was shot dead on Saturday by police because he was gnawing off another man's face. Obviously, that sounds horrific, and it is. I want to warn you that the pictures we're about to show you are very disturbing.
The guy just stood his head up like that with a piece of flesh in his mouth and growled.
This surveillance video shows the aftermath, the victim who was off camera missing 75% of his face. What could have triggered this man to commit such a savage attack? Experts suspect bath salts.
But in the background, the trouble in Lealman was beginning. Danielle Harkins has been working at the center for 5 years as a teacher who specialized in reading and writing skills. She was dedicated and determined to help her students and help them succeed in life. Danielle was known as an incredible teacher who cared passionately about her students. She would even stay at the center for after-school programs and continue to help the kids. In her personal life, she had 2 kids of her own, but was going through a divorce with speculation that there was domestic violence and sexual violence involved. But these thoughts were dismissed later on. In the later months after the divorce, she began to strongly explore religion and spiritual beliefs, which some people found strange while others didn't. Now it's unsure what exact beliefs she was exploring. Either way, Danielle spoke to her neighbor, Lisa, and told her she was free of demons. But then Danielle told Lisa, "You are okay. You don't have any demons." At this point, Lisa grew concerned and called Danielle's ex-husband, where she asked where the kids were, and he said they were with him. Then a few days later, news would break.
A St. Petersburg teacher charged with child abuse, accused of telling teenagers they had evil spirits in their bodies and that she wanted to get them out. Investigators say the teacher, Danielle Harkins, did manage to persuade 2 of her former students to follow through on a ritual ceremony. Let's get more on this story from Josh Thomas from our coverage partner, WFLA.
Danielle Harkins.
35-year-old Danielle Harkins appeared before a judge for the first time Wednesday since her arrest on child abuse charges. She's accused of telling 2 of her former students to take part in a ritual to rid themselves of demons.
Apparently there was some sort of ritual taking place in which she was directing the teenagers to cut themselves to release demons from their body, and then at some point to cauterize the wound by using a heated key or applying fire to the skin to kind of close the wound to keep the evil spirits from getting back.
Harkins met and tutored the students while serving as a literacy mentor at the Lealman and Asian Learning Center in St. Petersburg. Investigators say Harkins was at the pier in St. Petersburg Saturday with 7 of her former students when she told a 16 and 17-year-old to take part in the ritual based on her religious beliefs.
She obviously has more knowledge in terms of exactly the history of her beliefs at this point. All we can do is based on her activities with these kids, which obviously is outside the norm.
Investigators say they've spoken to Harkins, but she didn't spell out what type of religion would require such drastic measures.
She hasn't informed us at this point exactly what it is she was trying to accomplish with this. Like I say, there was apparently she's spoken to some neighbors that we understand are a little concerned about some recent information she's passed on to them about some of her beliefs.
One of the boys told his father about what happened, and that parent contacted police, who now want to know if there are other victims.
Well, one of the things we are looking at is whether or not there was any other past events similar to this. At this point, we don't have any indication of that, but that's one of the aspects the investigation will be doing.
Police say they're having a tough time with the interviews.
The kids that participated in this were rather loyal to her. There was a lot of reluctance in discussing some of these issues with us.
Danielle Harkins.
Harkins is charged with 1 count of child abuse, 1 count aggravated battery. You might wonder, how could this story get any creepier? But police believe there's more we don't know yet. I rang Harkins' doorbell, but no one answered. Harkins' neighbors didn't want to go on camera. They said there's not much to say. They didn't know much about her. They said she kept to herself, had 2 small children, but was struggling going through a messy divorce.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
The kids are former students of Harkins at the Lealman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center. Director Carolyn Chance showed me where Harkins worked the last 5 years.
She was a very good teacher, literacy specialist. Just recently, she started exploring religion, but I didn't know anything about demons or anything like that.
You've been in the business almost 50 years.
A long time.
You know how to read people.
I never saw this coming. Never.
June 9th, 2012. Danielle is at the St. Petersburg Pier around dusk, where she starts a fire to prepare a cleansing ritual for herself and some former students of the Lealman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center. 7 former students of hers showed up, 6 boys and a girl. When the students arrived, Danielle told them there were demons living inside of their bodies, that their bodies were infested, and the only way to get them out was by cutting them open to release the demons, and then cauterizing the wounds so they couldn't get back in. Before the ritual, Danielle and the former students began to dance and chant around the fire. Once the dance was completed, Danielle encouraged the students to cut themselves and use a lighter to close the wound. Danielle proceeded to tell one of the boys, "You need to get rid of an evil tick." None of the former students wanted to start this ritual, so Danielle took it upon herself. Danielle either instructed another student or Danielle herself used a jagged piece of a broken bottle and sliced a student along his neck, and then Danielle burned a key and placed the key along the cut to cauterize it. After this, Danielle cut another student's hand and tried to brand them with a lighter, but the wind kept blowing the flame out until Danielle poured perfume on the student's hand and proceeded to set his hand on fire. The fire caused second-degree burns. This is where the story gets a little fuzzy. Either that night during the ritual, or the next night, one of the students involved texted a friend about what was going on. The friend immediately told their parents, and they called the police, where Danielle was arrested. Nobody is positive about what else happened at the campfire outside of those 2 incidents, so whatever happened to the other students is unknown, which came as a surprise, but none of the students ever spoke out about what happened. All the students involved were very loyal to Danielle, so none of them ever spoke out during the police investigation. The only student who spoke out was 17-year-old Stephen Chantalima, who said, "I'm fine. All I know is she's in custody." Danielle was arrested for 2 charges, one for child abuse and the other aggravated battery. Upon questioning, she never denied her actions or that the ritual happened. All she really said was along the lines of she thought she was helping the kids. She was immediately suspended without pay from her job and was held for a $55,000 bond. Since almost none of the teens came out and said anything, it was a challenge trying to piece together the story. The investigation continued and mentioned Danielle was experiencing emotional distress due to the divorce. The prosecutors said she abused her authority and put the kids in harm's way, while the defense said her mental health made Danielle unaware of the consequences and her behavior was because of her untreated emotional distress. Since only one of the students testified, she was only convicted of 1 count of child abuse and aggravated battery. She was in prison for 6 months and paid thousands of dollars of court fees and bonds. As of 2014, she was released from prison and disappeared. Upon some research, I believe there is a decent answer to what she could have been exploring in terms of her belief. Simply, I don't think she was practicing Satanism or anything along those lines, but instead Christianity, exorcisms. Now it's clear right away that doesn't make sense, since the usual Christian exorcism revolves around the subject lying down, where the exorcist finds the demon's name and persuades it to leave. They typically say something along the lines of, "I command you, every evil spirit, in the name of God, the Father Almighty, in the name of Jesus Christ, his only Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit, that harming no one, you depart from this creature of God, and return to the place appointed you, there to remain forever. In the case of Danielle Harkins, I believe she simply pushed this to the extreme and believed the exorcism needed to be permanent. So, in this case, it lines up with her emotional distress, pushing the boundaries of a typical exorcism. Now, we can explore this in a different way as well. What if Danielle was possessed? In the Bible, Mark chapter 5, verse 1 through 20, Jesus restores a possessed man. Verse 1 through 5 states, "They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with the chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones." Then, in more modern cases, where people seemed possessed in Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, people would cut and burn themselves in an attempt to purify themselves. I'm not saying Danielle was possessed, but it's something to possibly consider, although likely not true. After the events that unfolded, the community was freaking out. Once the story was released, people began questioning if there was a cult within the family center. Parents feared their kids would be sucked into this cult. These worries eventually went away. As of today, the Lealman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center continues to be what it always has been, a helpful place to provide and support families.
Hello, hello.
Surrounded by homes in Lealman is a little family center, the Lealman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center.
You want to sit here with them?
Asian is in the name because so many of the students and families that come here are of some Asian descent.
Why?
Take Twat Tron.
You done school?
The kids call her Mrs. T.
Oh.
She's worked here for 19 years. Her role, much more than a career, has really been a calling.
We have a lot of Vietnamese students. They came from Vietnam, and I help them to learn English here.
Many of the students and their parents don't know English when they first come. So getting homework done with tutors and English speakers is a big stress reliever to parents. But it's not just kids Mrs. T helps.
So how your kid doing, Trang?
But parents too. Parents like Trang Trong. She immigrated to the U.S. in the 1990s and remembers the fear that came with that enormous life change.
The first few months we feel like a fish out of water.
This family center helped Trang and her husband with English classes. With that help, they both graduated from college in Tampa Bay, and her kids have now graduated college too. All of them are successfully in the workforce. Trang's story is just one of many that have found community, friendship, and growth at the family center. But it's more than language. It's about culture and heritage.
English is not my first language. And as an immigrant myself to the United States, I so can relate to, the challenges of, maybe being a child and having English not be your first language and being afraid.
Did you like how all the boys got the cool lanterns and the girls got left out?
No.
Was that fair? No.
The recognition of keeping one's heritage, but also assimilating into their new nationality. That is the balance many families find important here. And while Trang is proud to say she is an American,
but I still want to keep my culture.
A balance now found for generations.
As of May 2024, they've been a major help to the growing population of Vietnamese Americans. The center continues to provide the kids with memories that will last forever. As of the Lealman area itself, big changes were coming. In 2016, the Lealman Community Redevelopment Area was adopted. The plan with this is to help bring Lealman out of poverty so Lealman could experience economic growth like Pinellas County has been getting. The CRA is intended to last until 2046. the CRA outlined 5 initial redevelopment types. In the yellow is the innovation districts, in the gray is Lealman Heights, in red is the commercial corridors and industrial warehouse districts and neighborhoods. In 2022, this happened.
Welcome back. Tonight, Tampa Bay towns are starting to attract high-tech companies. Amazon and Tesla now both working on plans to move to the same area. And tonight, ABC Action News reporter Sarah Hollenbeck found out it could lead to a major investment in a community that's often been overlooked.
There's a buzz in Lealman even more robust than the sound of these go-karts.
Bringing jobs, cleaning up the community. It's good for the environment. And I don't know if you drove a Tesla, but wow.
Soon, Terry Downs, the owner of Pro Karting Experience, could have a front row seat to this furniture liquidation store on 34th Street North, turning into a state-of-the-art Tesla sales and repair center.
Sitting here and watching downtown grow and seeing it getting closer and closer, I think this is another step in the right direction.
It comes as Amazon breaks ground on a new distribution center nearby on 45th Street North. Angela Parkhurst at the Curve Exchange plus-size retail boutique is thrilled.
It's amazing to think that they could go anywhere in Florida, anywhere in Pinellas County, and they're choosing this area.
Lealman is a lower income area, and for years, county leaders have worked to attract high-paying jobs and a tidal wave of economic development here.
When you have Amazon and Tesla, two of the most successful companies in the world, choosing this area, in many ways, the victory already is Lealman's for an area that's poised for great growth.
And because both projects are in the community redevelopment area, investments by Amazon and Tesla will lead to direct improvements to enhance Lealman.
While I might not walk into a Tesla dealership and buy one, the people on 34th Street might not be the ones walking in and buying them. You're also bringing people in who can elevate the area even more so.
With more people moving into Lealman as St. Petersburg rent and home prices skyrocket, community members say these investments come at an ideal time.
That's more people for us, more people for them. It's a happiness for all the small businesses in this area.
Tesla is expected to sign off on the deal within 2 weeks. In Lealman, Sarah Hollenbeck, ABC Action News.
There is fear running through the community that the CRA is going to increase investments in the area, which will ultimately gentrify the residents living there. What happened back in 2012 was a misfortunate event. What Danielle did is horrific, and I just hope the kids involved are doing okay. In reality, the issue at hand was Danielle was battling emotional distress without any help. If she sought professional help, none of this would have happened. All of this was formed by her emotional distress, which resulted in the harm of her own former students. But at the same time, that does not excuse Danielle of her actions. She still took advantage of her students and left them scarred. Where she is in life is completely unknown, but the community center continues to thrive without her, and that's what is important at the end of this. Although a question does stick around, what would have happened if that student never texted their friend?
How many more kids would have been cut and burned? How far would she have gone?
So remember to always stay safe out there. Lock your doors and lock your windows. And don't be afraid to look over your shoulder every once in a while. We will see you next time.
Smiling at trouble, for trouble's a bubble, and bubbles will soon go away. With never a sadness, and nothing but gladness, we'd weary of life in a day. Be like the violets that doze neath the chill winter snows, they bravely wait for the May. So keep smiling at trouble, for trouble's a bubble, and bubbles will soon go away.